Thanks, Sarah, and thank you all for joining us on what we believe at Sentis to be quite an important topic. Although creating a compelling safety vision, in our experience at Sentis, is certainly an underappreciated aspect of driving positive safety performance. Again, our experience and what some of the research is going to show throughout this webinar is that creating a well thought out, engaging and compelling safety vision gives the leadership group and the workforce a common focus. And around that common focus, you can create a greater alignment. So when you have alignment, when you have a common focus, you also have an ability to impact on so many decisions and micro decisions that you can't possibly think out and plan out to the nth degree. So if people are really clear where they're heading, why they're heading there, and the benefits of getting there, then you can actually create a groundswell and a momentum where the big decisions and the little decisions are all helping us towards that common goal or that common vision. So we're going to pace out a little bit today how we create that compelling vision. At Sentis, we have a mission to change the lives of individuals and organisations for the better every day. We do that through the application of psychology and neuroscience to help leaders and team members, again, align around these compelling safety visions that help them get more people home safe to the things, people, and places that are most important to them. As Sarah shared, you'll be provided with these resources after this webinar. There's also a link that you can access which provides you access to today's handout, which is outlined on the screen. So today's handout is just a useful tool for you to think through your own compelling safety vision at your organisation and start to map that out for yourself. So I encourage you to go there, download it. It's got some hints and tips and some resources that you can pull on either during this particular webinar or at a later date. So how are we going to tackle the topic of creating a compelling safety vision? We're going to do it first of all by understanding what the role of effective safety leadership is in a vision. We're going to look at the current insights into why you would want to create a safety vision from a performance and outcomes perspective. We're going to look at the impact on our brains of establishing a new vision within an organisation, or even the impacts of having an ineffective vision within your organisation. And then we're going to actually unpack a couple of different visions from different organisations, look at what works, look at what doesn't work, and then give you some tools to start to build your own vision for your organisation. So first of all, to tap in this idea of effective safety leadership, anyone who's seen our webinars before understands that we have a strong belief that leadership plays a huge role in safety performance across organisations. And the reason it plays such a huge role is actually quite simple, in that leadership has an overarching impact and influence on all aspects of organisational culture. So on the screen here, you can see our high-level safety culture model. What it says is that at a high level, culture is made up of 4 key components. Leadership, so that's your leadership's behaviours, attitudes, and approaches to safety. People, so that's people's attitudes, abilities, skills. Environment, it's your engineering controls and your sort of more physical controls, as well as your planning and maintenance. And practices, your policies, procedures, rules, and guidelines. Interestingly, if you were to, in the many thousands of people I've facilitated, around this particular model, most organisations spend most of their time on the environment and the practice components of this particular tool. And there's some benefit to that. You can put tangible controls into place, which mean that you've set up some good work conditions for people to make the right safe choices. However, if people aren't bought into those tools, if leaders aren't driving the right sorts of behaviours, what we tend to find is that organisations' safety performance plateaus, or in fact starts to degrade, because a reactive response to safety incidents can start to come into play. Something goes wrong, we just roll out more practices, we just roll out more physical controls without actually engaging people in the objective or the outcome that we're looking for. So if you're finding that you've hit a bit of a plateau, or you're not, your safety performance isn't improving at the rate that you would like it to, the chance is maybe you haven't engaged the person and the leadership components of this model as effectively as you could. So let's talk a little bit more about what effective safety leadership looks like. We've done a lit review many years ago, and we've since been applying our model of safety citizenship. And in our model of safety citizenship, we talk about 8 safety leadership competencies, and this research pulls from transactional and transformational leadership capabilities. So just to go through these very quickly, the 8 dimensions that we encourage organisations to think about when it comes to effective safety leadership are, first of all, supporting. So this is supporting team members through actively monitoring performance and compliance of safety standards. So how effectively do your leaders essentially drive accountability? Recognizing and rewarding team members based on achievement of high safety standards. Again, other webinars that we've run have highlighted that leaders will often, when it comes to safety, predominantly focus on when things don't go wrong as opposed to when things go right. So giving leaders the skills and the tools to actually recognize strong performance helps us get more strong performance. Actively caring for health, safety, and general well-being of individuals within the team. So that's us actively going out and showing people that we care about them. Collaborating with the team on safety issues and decisions through our consultative process. The one that we're going to talk about today is sharing a vision of the team's safety goals and communicating the roadmap to achieve them. So do people understand where you're trying to take the organisation from a safety perspective and their role in contributing to those outcomes? Inspiring, so this talks to inspiring a team towards their vision and motivating and encouraging communication. So once you've created the vision, once you've created the roadmap, how do you get people energized and engaged around it? Role modeling talks to fairly self-explanatory, but walking the talk and walking the talk. And then finally, challenging. So this is about challenging people to think about safety challenges and scenarios in ways that they may not have considered before. So they're the 8 dimensions that we typically measure when we go in and we work with safety leadership teams, and we do that through self-rating, upwards ratings, and different 360 tools. So we're going to share some interesting results from the surveys that we've run in the past in just a moment, but I want to run a quick poll for the people who've dialed in for today. So I'll ask Sarah to put that up on the screen. What I'm going to ask you to think about is, in your organisation, what percentage of leaders do you think demonstrate strong safety leadership? So if you think about those 8 competencies that we spoke about and you were to think about your leadership, what percentage of them do you think effectively apply those competencies? Is it less than 20%, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, or more than 80%? What percentage do you think demonstrate strong safety leadership? So we're just collecting those details now, and the results we're going to share again is a combination of self-rating, upwards rating, 360 results, and it gives you some, really reveals where the strengths and weaknesses are around safety leadership. So Sarah, how are we going with those numbers?
Yeah, just about there. I'll share them now.
Great. Okay, so interesting. So we've got less than 20%, so about a quarter believe that some say that only about 20% would have strong safety leadership. Others say about 31%. Others are saying much stronger results, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, or more than 80%. So a bit of a spread across the different organisations. What we've found in our own research, and I guess the research that we've covered is across, in this particular study, is across over 8,000 participants. So this is the upwards perception. So this is, how do I feel about my direct leader? We've got self-perceptions, and we've taken this data from 9 industries across 5 different locations: Australia, Africa, New Zealand, US, and global. What we've found across this particular sample group is that only about 24% of leaders demonstrate strong safety leadership. So that means that 3/4 of your leaders out there aren't effective in leading safety on a day-to-day basis, potentially. So another quick poll. How would you rate your ability to set a strong safety vision and communicate the roadmap to achieve it? Would you say it's poor, fair, average, or strong? So if you were to go out there and rate yourself right now about, I guess, the strength of the safety vision that you've got and your ability to communicate the roadmap, how effective do you think you are at that right now? Poor, fair, or strong?
All right, I'm almost there.
Right?
Just a couple more seconds.
Excellent.
All right, I'm going to share that.
Excellent. We've got fair and average, the most significant one there at 65%. About a quarter think they're quite strong, and then about 9% say that they're fairly poor at it. Excellent. So this is an incredibly important part of being an effective leader and driving a positive safety culture. We've got a quote up here from Michael Sentis. So for those of you who aren't aware of him, he's an American systems scientist who is a senior lecturer at MIT Sloan School of Management. He's also a co-faculty at the New England Complex Systems Institute and the founder of the Society of Organizational Learning. What he says is few, if any, forces in human affairs are as powerful as a shared vision. Shared visions, as we've mentioned earlier, have that ability to bind. And the research that we've done has found that leaders, in terms of feelings of confidence in communicating a vision, are fairly reflective of the results that we just had pop up on the screen. Most people rate themselves in the fair space. But if you look at that compared to the other competencies, that's often the area that leaders feel least capable. Interestingly enough too, if you dig a little bit deeper and you look at the 360 data, what we found typically is people overrate themselves compared to what their peers or subordinates would rate them. So as you can see in this particular slide here, they've rated themselves as fair, but you're starting even lower than that when you actually ask peers and subordinates how effective people are at communicating that safety vision and that safety roadmap. And this is a hugely important topic to cover. And the reason it's so important to cover is because, again, across the research that we've conducted, it's organizations that have a strong safety mission and vision which are most likely to be strong, to have strong safety cultures and get stronger safety outcomes and performance. So what you're seeing here is the top 5 strengths identified across operating sites in the more mature parts of the Sentis maturity model. So this is from private compliance up. So private compliance is where we start to see individuals and organizations take greater ownership and responsibility of their safety choices. Organizations who have a very externally locused, compliance-focused culture, the underperforming cultures are typically very ineffective at creating a clear safety mission and vision. So let's have a look at these top 5 dimensions and let's just have a quick chat about how they tie together. So just if you are interested in learning a little bit more about where we got this data from, this data is taken from our Driving a Positive Safety Culture resource, which can be downloaded from our website. It's from across 73 different operational sites and a stratified sample group of over 20,000 people. So what this data set says is that these stronger performing organizations, they've set a clear mission and vision. The roll down on that is there's greater perceived management safety commitment. And it starts to make sense as you play this out. If I know what the mission, what the vision is, and what the roadmap is, as a manager, it's easier for me because I've got a clear understanding of what's expected of me to drive and communicate around those particular outcomes. We then start to see greater within-team safety communications. Again, people are clearer about what the objectives are, so we tend to see them communicating better about how to achieve those objectives. The roll down of that tends to be greater safety responsibility, because again, people know what's expected of them, what they're responsible and accountable for, and largely because managers are making it clear what expectations are, people take that responsibility on. And the final result is when you roll out new safety initiatives, we tend to see leaders in these organizations link safety initiatives, safety objectives to that mission and vision, and that creates greater team support for safety. The reverse of this tends to be strongly resistant organizations where people don't buy in to that change. So it's such an important part of creating positive safety culture and driving positive safety outcomes. So why do organizations struggle with vision so much? Well, there's a few reasons that we've found in our own research and in the work that we've done. The first one is a lack of organisational vision for the leader to link to. So in some cases, organisations haven't even really thought about their safety vision, or the safety vision itself is very poorly constructed. So it makes it difficult for leaders to tie to that vision in the first place. Again, this also links to that. If it's poorly put together, sometimes leaders just don't understand and support the organisational vision. So it's unclear, it's incoherent, and perhaps safety isn't even tied into that vision as a whole. Sometimes organisations will set visions which are seen as too far away or unachievable. So zero harm or zero incidents is often raised in this particular vein. Do people truly believe that zero incidents are possible? Is that driving the most helpful behaviours? And again, that's a whole other debate. But organisations, if they set perceived unrealistic expectations and goals, then people disengage immediately. Next one here is the leader has difficulty maintaining focus on the end goal while dealing with current realities. So I often see this come up when leaders say safety is our #1 priority. The challenge with priorities is priorities change. So when we don't have a clear vision tied to values and tied to organisational behaviours and expectations and KPIs, it makes it very tricky. So we'll unpack some of that in just a moment. And then finally, the leader is difficulty finding the right pitch to inspire teams on the journey. So again, many leaders that we work with, when they are asked to communicate a compelling and inspiring vision, they've never done it before. So it feels clumsy and it feels uncomfortable. So as a result, they tend to avoid it altogether. So we'll tap into how we tackle some of these challenges. But before we do that, it's useful to understand how our brain responds to change and responds to communicating a vision. One thing we know about our brain is our brain loves to predict the future based on previous patterns. And in fact, that's how our brains make sense of the world. When we see a scenario, we attend to the information, we link it back to our past experiences, and a frame pops up. A frame is what we think, feel, and do around a particular situation. So often we'll overlay our past experience onto future experience. And that's how we make sense of the world. The challenge is when we roll out a new vision or a new initiative across an organization or a new way of doing things, what we're asking people to do is we're asking people to create new patterns. We're asking people to put a new frame around an existing situation. And that takes energy. When I have to rethink something, when I have to put a different frame or a different attitude or a different expectation around something, I'm actually asking my brain to do work and rewire things. And my brain doesn't necessarily always want to do that. And as a result, when we ask our brains to put that energy in, these things can be perceived as a threat. Again, we're asking people to change. Change takes energy. Energy is a threat. So we need to think very consciously when we're tackling rolling out an effective vision and mission or a vision to an organization, how we help people be energized around that vision as much as we can to help bring them on the journey as quickly as we can. So we need to think about how we can help them create a new pattern which ultimately conserves energy in the long run. So what we're going to explore now is the process that our brains go through when we ask them to change and how we can tap into this to create a new pattern. So the model you'll see on the screen here is called the stages of change model. And this is actually a model that I used when I was doing clinical work back in drug and alcohol rehabilitation days. And what this model helps us understand is the stages that any of us go through when we try and change any habit or any experience in our lives. And this applies very much to safety. But for the sake of common ground and a removed example, I'm going to tackle a topic which many of us have probably had to tackle before, and that is one of, say, health and fitness. So I would imagine that most people who are listening in today have tried to either lose weight, get fitter, or get healthier at some stage in their life, most people. I want you to think about if you had what that experience of forming that new habit or attempting to form that new habit was like. I'll take you through an example that I've experienced on a number of occasions. I'll train quite a lot and then I might become injured, or something might happen in my life where for whatever reason that training drops off. And next thing you know, it's 3 or 6 or 12 or 18 months down the track, and really the exercise has fallen by the wayside. Often there's a triggering event, which means that we start to think about this change, or start to think about engaging in change. It might be that, in my instance, you pull on the swimmers at summertime and things are bulging out perhaps where they weren't last summer. So I was previously in pre-contemplation around exercise and training. It might be in that moment that I move into contemplation. I might go, oh, you know what, maybe I should start exercising again. I'm not looking the way that I would like to look, but then I might put that to the wayside, put a shirt on, have a beer and forget about it. But then over time, I might start to build further evidence to change. Perhaps I start playing with the kids and I find myself short of breath, and I start to get a bit more motivation built. I then might go into preparation. Preparation typically for me looks like going to the local sports store, maybe buying a whole new running kit, because you need that, right, if you're going to get fit. So you go buy some new runners, you get some socks, you get some pants, you get a singlet, maybe one of those fancy things that you put your iPhone in, you got your headphones, and you got all the clobber. And you put it on the end of on the bed, and you say, look at my new running gear, I can't wait to test it out. By the end of the day, it's under the bed, and 3 weeks later, it's still there. More motivation builds. You go for your first run, and you set out, and if you're anything like me, you set out trying to achieve the pace that you had achieved prior to stopping. Inevitably, you get about a K into the 5K run, you're blowing up, you're short of breath, you sort of walk the rest of the way, and you're very sore for the next 3 days, and you go back to pre-contemplation again. This is a stage of progressive change that I'm experiencing right now. Where I want to get to is I want to get to a place where I've got enough motivation and enough knowledge of how to change that I continue to engage in the action component. I continue to run and exercise and recognize the benefits to the point that I get into a place of maintenance. Now, in maintenance is I've now created a new set of neural connections in my brain. I've created a new habit around exercise. And it's when we get to this place in a change journey that we've created a new habit that it feels more uncomfortable not to proceed with that new habit than it does to avoid it. So, for example, when I'm in my full running zone and I'm in maintenance phase, if I miss a run for a couple of days, I might feel a bit fidgety, or I might feel a bit on edge around not going for that run. I actually feel more uncomfortable about not going for the run. So the whole scenario has flipped. And this is what we're largely trying to do around safety. We're trying to help people go through a stage of change process where safety isn't taking a lot of brain energy. It's not necessarily a conscious thing. We've moved into unconscious competence. People are doing the right things because they believe in them, they're motivated, and they've created positive safety habits. And we've got lots of these that we've seen over the years. Probably putting your seatbelt on, for example, would be one. So a compelling safety vision actually helps take people through these stages of change process by creating the why, the what's in it for them, and a common place to focus and align around. So we'll unpack those stages of change now against different scenarios. We'll have a quick chat about how we can address moving consciously from pre-contemplation to contemplation, preparation, action, etc. Because the challenge that we typically find when we work with organizations is we move straight to focusing on the action. This is what you will do, you shall do, you must do. And I often say, who here likes getting told what to do? When you just focus on action, well, that's when we get the strong resistance and the strong pushback. So it's about creating that story, that compelling vision. So what does good look like? I want to start by tackling a couple of examples of safety visions that we've just dug off the internet. This is not a bad one, and we'll unpack this one a little bit later on. There's a few tweaks that you can make to beef it up a bit, but we'll kick it off. Safety is our number one priority at blank. So again, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see safety linked to a value, but that's another conversation. We are determined in our commitment to the health and safety of our employees, customers, and community. We will continually improve our processes, demonstrate leadership, and promote comprehensive safety. We will require individual accountability, expect all employees to adhere to our safety standards, and actively participate in the support and enhancement of our health and safety practices. Safety is the responsibility of all management and employees of blank. Everyone is responsible for achieving zero incidents, resulting in a safe day, a safe tomorrow, a safe year, and a safe career. So we'll unpack that in just a moment. There's some okay bits in there. There's also some bits in there which we'll have a look at, which I think are potentially leading that to not be as effective as it possibly could be. The next one we'll take a look at, really interesting, it's a very much written by the legal department. It's legal jargon. At blank company, safety on the job and health and personal safety of each employee is of primary importance in all phases of operation and administration. By providing a safe and healthy workplace, blank company upholds their moral responsibility to protect all employees and the public. In accordance with state laws and regulations, federal standards, and company policy, the first order of business at blank company is to ensure the safety and health of employees at all times. Okay, that probably makes the legal department really happy, that particular mission statement. But think about who it is you're trying to inspire. Think about who this vision is written for and who your target audience group is. Think about maybe reading this out to a group of your employees at a pre-start or toolbox meeting, and imagine right now the responses you get on their faces. Another one, and this probably isn't great. Blank company is committed to providing a safe workplace for all its employees and those of its subcontractors. No single facet of blank operation is of greater importance. Blank has an extensive history of taking measures to educate its workforce, ensuring all projects operate under the safest possible conditions. Robust in-house safety program headed by a dedicated full-time corporate safety director who works day and night and day in, day out with all levels of personnel, clients. Look, I'll let you read it. It basically, it's a defensive position when it comes to safety. A little bit like Margaret Thatcher, if you have to tell people you're a lady, then possibly you aren't. So this feels a little bit inauthentic and detached. This one is actually not too bad. The big challenge with this one is it misses out on the why. So it's got a shared vision, is to provide a work environment free from harm by promoting positive safety culture and continually improving the health, safety, and well-being of our workforce. Our commitment to our employees and stakeholders is demonstrated by our leadership's team's management of health, safety, security, and environment, and our continual drive towards zero incidents. This can be seen in our global vision statement. It has to be blank. We are focused on creating safe working environments where our workforce is empowered to step up, take action, and be responsible for their own health and safety and that of others affected by their acts or omissions. So again, a bit easier digestible in its structure. However, the challenge with most of these is they're missing a clear and compelling why. And again, when we think about the why, we're not thinking about the why of the board and the CEO. We're thinking about the why of the individuals we're asking to make the safe choices on a day-to-day basis. And the hot tip is that if I'm a frontline worker, and in fact, most people in the organization, I don't necessarily think about the lost time injury frequency rate all that much unless I'm involved in an incident and I'm likely to be a stat. What people really care about is linking to motivation or emotional drivers, things that they can think about which would drive them to take more intrinsic responsibility of safety. So one of the tools that we encourage organizations to think about is the concept of safety as a currency. So when we talk about safety as a currency, we ask people to think about, well, how do they view safety? Do they see safety as a cost or a currency? When we see safety as a cost, we see safety as costing us more time, more effort, more energy, making the job go slower. It's interesting. When you ask people what's the most important things to them, they'll typically say things like their family or their health or their relationships or kicking the footy on the weekend. And it's their safe choices that are going to get them to be able to do that. However, it's often we get confused in the moment when we get time pressure, we come under stress, that we reprioritize safety. Yeah, we put safety to the back because we need to take a shortcut to get the job done. Anyone who's involved in an incident and has experienced the consequences of that incident will tell you that they wish they hadn't made that choice. Because often the reason they're making that choice is to cut a couple of seconds off or make things a little bit quicker for the organization. The challenge is it'll be the individual who wears that incident in the long run. The organization will, of course, have to deal with all the legal ramifications, but they're going to keep on going, where people might have lost that finger or lost that arm or be injured or potentially dead. And their family and they will continue to feel those benefits for effects for a very long time. So our encouragement is to create a vision, create a link back to something that people can connect to personally. Once we've thought about that personal connection, it's about being clear on what good will look like. An example here is creating some clear descriptors. So we sometimes talk to organizations about and imagine this type of document. Imagine what it would be like to work in an organization where every person is committed to achieving the vision and truly and high-performing teams are truly created, where individuals are genuinely accepted and supported by every member of the company, where employees go the extra mile and continually focus on finding the better and more effective ways to work. So what we've tried to do there, or what we're demonstrating there, is we have a vision to get a particular outcome for people as individuals. The behaviors that we want them to engage in may look like these. Having safety weaved, of course, into your values becomes a very important part of this conversation as well, which we'll talk about in a moment. In the how. So in the how, we want to map out the actions that will get us there. So in the how, we want to talk very clearly about the behaviors every single day that we want people, that we want to talk about what good looks like. These are the decisions, these are the choices that we will make in order to get these particular outcomes. So what we encourage organizations to think about is values that are more than just generic pictures on the wall and behavioral descriptors of those. People struggle with this. I'd encourage you, again, as part of this conversation, as part of this thinking, to grab the book by Patrick Lencioni called The Advantage. In that, he talks about values as being a competitive advantage in organizations thriving and outperforming their competitors. He challenges us in that book to move beyond the permission to play values such as respect or innovation, or the ones that we see on 99% of organizations' walls. He's saying that truly your values and the descriptors of those values should differentiate you and help people understand what it means to work in your organization and to truly thrive. We use that process, and you can see the outcomes of that process on the screen here at Sentis. So let's talk about how this can play out a little bit, and we'll go back to this particular vision statement that we've got on the screen here. So when we talk about the what, we want the statement to set a clear tone around what the goal is. So safety is our #1 priority at company X. We are determined in our commitment to the health and safety of our employees, customers, and community. So that's okay. They've got the what. The how. So there needs to be, and there is one here, a clear description of how the company intends to achieve the ongoing commitment to good health and safety of its people, customers, and community. We will continually improve our processes, demonstrate leadership, and promote comprehensive safety. We will require individual accountability, expect all employees to adhere to our safety standards, and actively participate in and support the advancement of our health and safety practices. And then finally, the why. The why, in the why, we want a statement that finishes on a strong note. Everyone is responsible for achieving 0 accidents, resulting in a safe day, safe year, and safe career. So this is a subtle why, but what we would be challenging this particular organisation is to be more explicit and have more emotional punch, and to invite more personal ownership of the vision. It could sound something like, we do this because we genuinely care for each other, our customers, and our community. We believe that everyone can play their part to achieve a safe day, a safe tomorrow, a safe year, and a safe career. So again, as much as possible, linking it back to things that people can personally connect to and that leaders can link back to when they're communicating around jobs and the objectives of the business. So let's imagine we've now used the process of the stages of change, and we've covered off on the what, the how, and the why. The next big challenge many organisations face when it comes to driving a safety vision in their organisation is maintaining the vision. So a couple of steps to consider in maintaining the vision within your organisation. Firstly is lead the why. So this is the most crucial part. The most crucial part is that leaders are part of sharing that authentic vision, that they are linking to that vision, and they're able to make examples of how that vision applies to them and why they're bought into it. So leaders really need to take ownership of that vision. And this, of course, starts at the CEO. That CEO cascading and preferably the board, if possible, owning that vision, rolling it down, and linking back to it as regularly as possible is incredibly important. Creating aha moments is also really important. So this is, again, about trying to create those compelling links to the why. So this might be examples such as, and we use a concept at Sentis called the personal big 5, where we ask people to share the 5 most important things, people, places, or situations to them. The 5 things, if they lost them or they're taken away, they'd miss the most. So it might be an example of leaders sharing the vision, sharing what that vision means to them, and sharing their own personal links to the why. Often leaders will have run organisations where they've seen the implications and the ramifications of safety not going to plan. So linking back to that can also be incredibly powerful. Another important aspect of this is creating and communicating a vision isn't a once-off set and forget kind of scenario. So if we want people to really embrace it, if we want the vision and the mission to be rolling off the tongue, we need to go back to it with attention density. So attention density refers to raising the quality and quantity of the focus on the vision. So going back to it continually and linking it into everything that we do. Again, this links a little bit to attention density as well, but always going back to the vision and celebrating when we achieve aspects of it, but also talking about it when we don't achieve what we want to set out to achieve. And again, and that links to this learn, adapt, and pivot. So when we don't achieve what we set out to achieve, let's be humble in that process. Let's stop, let's reflect, let's ask for feedback, and let's work out how, as an organisation, we can achieve that vision better together. you get really rich data out of those conversations when things don't work out to plan, and you invite that feedback from the broader organisation. So we've covered a bit of ground here, but to summarise before we go into some questions, what we challenge you to think about is, as you're putting the vision together, as you're thinking about how you phrase it up, remember who you're writing the vision for. Be clear about who you're writing the vision for. Are you writing this for your customers? Are you writing this for the board? Are you writing this for your executive group? Or are you writing this for your broader organisation and employees? I'd suggest it'd be the latter. Take time to think about the why and provide that link to the why very clearly and very deliberately. The clearer we can make the why, the more we'll break down that resistance, and the more buy-in we'll get quickly. Regularly review and maintain the vision. So again, spend time talking about the vision, and make sure that it's upfront and center and clear in all of our communications. If we can link it into our daily rituals, and this is just as important for our values as well, if we can tie it into our regular meetings, regular conversations, our procurement processes even, all those little micro decisions that people make on a day-to-day basis will start to create that groundswell of positive momentum around safety. And then, of course, celebrating individuals and teams who demonstrate the vision. If you see people who are truly role modeling the vision and the values behind that vision, then we should be actively going out and recognizing that really, really strong performance. So that's a quick summary of how to start to build and think about a vision for your organization. And we invite you to obviously jump on, download some of those resources that we've got so that you can have a think about the application of this for yourself. But I'll now open up to some questions. We've got 15 minutes or so, and the last couple of times we've run this, we've had lots of questions come through. So actually, as you're thinking about those questions and typing them into the chat box, if you're interested in exploring this further, you can of course jump on and download these resources off our website. You can also sign up to do our online Zip Essentials course as well, which covers off on a lot of the tools of cognitive safety that we talk about in this particular presentation. So Sarah, how are we going for questions?
Right, well, I just want to, we've got a few questions. I have reshared that link, that resource in the chat panel. People want to just open that up. And also there was a chat, one question through there. You mentioned an author earlier. Can you remember who that is? Just a couple of slides ago.
Yeah, Patrick Lencioni, and the book is called The Advantage.
I'm going to spell this wrong.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one.
I don't know. What's the book called?
The Advantage.
Advantage. Okay, so I've put that in there. Right, questions. All right. Kevin says, how does the role of incorporating the safety vision in with onboarding and inductions assist results, especially if new staff are contacted directly by the CEO or director?
Oh, look, setting clear expectations for people right from the get-go is so critical. You know, those initial impressions are formed up very, very quickly. In fact, we form new frames about things 0.1 to 0.25 of a second. So those initial engagements with an organization will have a lasting impact. Look, if you're going to have a CEO talking to your employees and outlining his or her passion for safety through a very strong safety vision, then that frame will stick with people. Of course, the maintenance of that as people go through their experience becomes incredibly important, but kicking off with that strong vision is so important. I'm working with a couple of organizations at the moment, and they're really struggling to get the momentum they're looking for. And part of the challenge is that people aren't clear what their North Star is, where they're headed. So getting this right and getting it clear and getting it bedded down just gives that clear sense of alignment and sets the framework that people need to operate from.
All right, another one, Michael says, everyone is time poor at work nowadays. How do we sell the vision when it's very hard to get people to focus on the goal when they are under immense deadline pressures?
Yeah, look, Michael, I think it's one of those nearly counterintuitive aspects that applies to so much of safety. We're so busy, we don't have time for safety. And often we only make time for safety when we're mopping up a mess or we're cleaning up or cleaning up an issue or something that's gone wrong. So the way that I would challenge individuals and organizations to think about having a clear safety vision and think about safety is that safety is an investment. If I invest in safety, yes, it might take a little bit more time now, but it's going to save me time, effort, and energy down the track. And we all know, and there's plenty of research that links strong safety performance and productivity and reliability and a bunch of those different outcomes as well. So sometimes it really is breaking the cycle of being reactive to safety, seeing safety as a cost. And a vision can be a good way to do that, a vision particularly cascaded down from the executive.
Okay, Noelle says, do you have tips on how we can promote safety through toolbox talks? Our guys just hear blah, blah, blah. How can we do it better?
Oh, great. Yep. So probably a complete another webinar there. There's some great resources on our website that you can download around this as well. I guess those toolbox talks, what is the purpose of them? Sit back, think about them. Often we see them as a box ticking exercise. You know, the leader gets up the front, reads through a list of directives that have been rolled down from the perceived shiny bums in corporate. People don't listen, don't engage, drinking their iced coffees, sunny's on, and have to sign a document at the end of the thing to say they understood and are going to apply what they've heard. Completely unbelievable. So we'd be really, there's a whole bunch of factors here. Think about group size. Do you have a board that you're operating from? What's the structure? Are you inviting participation? Are people sitting or standing? What's the layout of the room? Do your leaders have the ability to facilitate a meaningful conversation with people? It's a big question. But again, if safety is seen as a cost, if the safety vision is one that's focused on compliance and just safety is a tick box exercise that we have to get out of the way before we can get the job done, that's what those toolbox talks typically look like. So again, being clear about what your safety objectives are with a vision and then thinking about those critical safety communication points becomes really important.
Okay, Kevin asks, Anthony, do you believe in having visions like no harm are the best, as it gives supervisors the opportunity to stretch their staff and team towards ownership? As my dad told me, if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything.
Yeah. Look, I think it's important to have a clear common objective that we can align around. The challenge with focusing on having a vision which focuses on predominantly lag indicators or having a safety objective that focuses predominantly on lag indicators is you're focusing on the absence of something. So you're focusing on don't get hurt or don't do this or don't do that. And people often struggle in those instances to actually know what they should be doing. So what we'd be really encouraging individuals and leaders to focus on is what are the proactive measures, what are the behaviors that people can do? You know, the things that if people do more of that, they're less likely to get that outcome. The other challenge is if you've got a vision which is focused on no harm or zero incidents, often that's what our KPIs and our initiatives, and there's a whole nother webinar that we've run around this, are often tied to that lag indicator. And we often will see some unwanted behaviors come out of that. You know, the CEO gets rewarded on, you know, primarily lag indicators. Driving that lag indicator down becomes the focus. To be honest, the easiest way to drag that lag indicator down is to manage your injuries better and to hide incidents. And that's typically the behaviors that poorly thought out visions will have. So again, I'd be focusing on positive behaviors. I'd be focusing on empowering types of visions that give people a focus on things they can do as opposed to things they want to avoid.
All right, so Wayne asks, what are your thoughts on having the vision linked to 1, 3 and 5 year goals?
Great. Yeah. Look, I think a well thought out safety strategy should have quarterly priorities, annual, and then 3 to 5 year. And again, having a vision which sits over the top of those, that's your roadmap that you've basically mapped out, Wayne. You know, having the quarterly, the yearly, the 3 to 5, they're the different steps that are going to take into place, and that's certainly the process that we run when we're helping organisations transform their safety culture.
Okay, Stephen asks, often a vision is written by the H&S person for the GM. How does the H&S person get the GM to enunciate something he didn't have the skills to write himself?
And look, I think right there you've stated a primary issue in the creation of so many visions. If your health and safety team is responsible primarily for your safety vision, where does the broader responsibility for safety in that organisation sit? My argument would be that a facilitated process with the executive team around what safety is going to look like at that organisation is where that needs to sit. HSE should have a role in that. Obviously, they're going to be responsible for helping to implement it. But you've hit your first stumbling block right there. I would suggest if the safety team's writing it and asking operations to say it, and they don't have the buy-in. So I'd be looking at, you know, who's responsible for operationalising your vision. I'll be making sure that they're bought into it and they've had a hand in writing it.
Okay, Gary says, any suggestions on the safety vision being living and breathing versus set and forget?
Yes. So again, some of that comes down to the maintenance piece here. So I'd be looking at leaders' success profiles or role documents. I'd be making sure the visions are into that. I'd be making sure the behaviours that are going to help to achieve that vision are integrated into roles and expectations and even KPIs. So again, having lead indicators which are going to drive those outcomes are going to be great. Consciously linking to the why as part of your safety messaging behind that vision becomes really important. Having reward and recognition systems set up for individuals or teams who effectively achieve or role model the behaviours outlined in that vision. So thinking about all those aspects becomes really useful. I've seen some really good results with peer-on-peer recognition. So where peers can recognise people they believe who have brought the safety vision to life. You know, sometimes leaders have to kickstart that process, but you know, having a peer being able to recognise another peer with a small and appropriate reward that sits beside that, you know, all those sorts of things can help to bring the vision to life. And again, if you download some of those resources, you'll see, I think in Driving a Positive Safety Culture, there's some interesting suggestions in that book as well.
Okay, Jonathan says, how would you approach the development of a vision in an organisation where there is the potential for conflicting visions? For example, provided that must maintain staff safety, but also a level of community service where sometimes to ensure safety, staff safety means to compromise community service.
Yes. So this is a challenge for often the utilities sector. You know, you've got those primary utilities, often storms and those types of things. In those situations, I actually think getting the key operational functions of the business together and getting alignment around and building that vision together, that's more important than ever. Because if you feel like there's competing expectations or requirements on the workforce and on leaders, then you don't have a clear vision in your business. So no one said making these things is going to be easy. In those instances, I'd be really jamming those two challenges together and looking at, well, do they have to be mutually exclusive, or where's our line in the sand, and how do we combine those to get the best of both worlds?
All right, we have got quite a few more, but not so much time. So we'll just do a couple more and then we'll hopefully I'll send these other ones to you. Brad says, is it important to have some ambiguity in the vision to encourage conversation, engagement, ideas and innovation?
Look, your vision isn't going to be your plan. So it's meant to be high level enough that people know the general direction that we're heading in, but concrete enough that people don't get lost in it. So the encouragement of the conversation around it, I think, comes in the execution of your roadmap that sits behind it potentially. I'm not sure if I've answered your question completely there, Brad. But yes, it needs to be clear enough and thoughtful enough that people can buy into it, but needs to obviously have the space behind it for people to be able to engage with it and drive it forward, because it's not necessarily going to be a one size fits all.
Okay, one last question. What are your thoughts on linking safety vision with performance reviews of workers?
My thoughts are that if you link it to lag indicators, you're going to disempower the workforce and drive safety underground and see safety as a burden, and safety is more of a threat than being hurt. So I think if you can link to positive safety behaviors, things that people can engage in proactively, that's going to generally drive the organization forward, then that's fantastic. Making expectations clear and measuring those expectations, 100% behind that. The lag stuff, I think, can drive some pretty unhelpful behaviors at times.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Anthony. That was some fantastic webinar, from judging from the feedback. So, sorry. Okay, well, I'll share all these links later, the video and your resources, and also a link to more webinars coming up. Have you got anything else to say, Anthony?
Oh, look, if I haven't got to your question today and you want to discuss anything further, feel free to hit me on LinkedIn. So it's Anthony Gibbs from Sentis. If you send me an inbox, I'll get back to you on the next week or so with a response.
All right. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming today. I've sent a link there to future webinars. We'll be running webinars up until around the 17th of December, and then resuming again late January. So thanks a lot for joining us again, Anthony. I know there's another webinar coming up in the next few weeks with you, or another two. So yep. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. See you next week. Bye.
Thanks, all. Take care. Bye.